The leather soles of Marcus's sneakers had worn so thin that he could feel every crack in the sidewalk. As he walked toward First National Bank, the shoes, once white, now a patchwork of gray duct tape and frayed laces, squeaked with each step, announcing his presence like an unwanted alarm. He was 12 years old, small for his age, with eyes that had seen more struggle than most adults twice his life. His grandmother's words echoed in his mind as he pushed through the bank's heavy glass doors. "Baby, you hold your head up high. That account's got your mama's love in it. And don't you let nobody make you feel small." The air conditioning hit Marcus like a cold wall, raising goosebumps on his thin arms. His t-shirt, clean but faded from too many washes, suddenly felt inadequate among the pressed suits and designer handbags that filled the marble lobby. He clutched the worn passbook in his hand, the one his mother had given him 3 years ago, before the cancer took her, before his world shrank to a tiny apartment with his grandmother, before every penny became a prayer. "Can I help you?" A security guard's voice carried more suspicion than service. I need to check my account balance, sir," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. The guard's eyes traveled from Marcus's taped shoes to his nervous face. "You got an account here?" "Yes, sir. My mama opened it for me." Something in the guard's expression softened slightly, and he gestured toward the customer service desk. Marcus walked across the polished floor, hyper-aware of the squeaking sounds his shoes made, feeling the weight of eyes following his journey. He could hear the whispered conversations pause as he passed, could feel the judgment settling on his shoulders like a heavy coat. Behind the manager's desk sat Richard Pemberton, a man whose perfectly coiffed silver hair matched his perfectly pressed suit and perfectly practiced smile, the kind that never quite reached his eyes. He was reviewing documents when Marcus approached, and for a long moment he didn't look up. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said softly. Richard glanced up, and Marcus watched his expression shift from professional neutrality to barely concealed disdain. The manager's eyes performed the same degrading inventory the guards had. The shoes, the clothes, the small black boy who clearly didn't belong in his bank. "Lost, son?" Richard asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "The community center is 2 blocks down." "No, sir. I have an account here. I need to check my balance." Richard leaned back in his chair, and a smile played at his lips. Not a kind smile, but the smile of someone about to enjoy a private joke. "An account, here, at First National." "Yes, sir." Marcus placed the passbook on the desk with trembling fingers. Richard picked it up like it might be contaminated, holding it between 2 fingers. His smile widened as he opened it. Ready to prove this child wrong. Ready to send him on his way with a story he'd tell his golf buddies later. He turned to his computer, typed in the account number, and waited for the screen to load. Then his smile froze. His eyes widened. He leaned closer to the screen, blinked, then looked at the passbook again. The color drained from his face as he scrolled down, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. This can't be right," he muttered. Marcus felt his heart sink. Had something happened to his account? Had someone stolen his mother's gift to him? Richard looked up at Marcus with completely different eyes now filled with shock, confusion, and the dawning realization of a terrible mistake. He stood abruptly, his chair rolling backward. "Please wait here one moment," he said, his voice now stripped of its earlier arrogance. "Please." He disappeared into a back office, leaving Marcus standing alone, drowning in anxiety. Around him, other customers had started to notice the commotion. Whispers grew louder. Marcus wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, to be anywhere but here. Richard returned moments later with an older woman, the bank's senior vice president, Mrs. Eleanor Chen, whose expression was all business. She looked at Marcus, then at her manager, then at the computer screen. Marcus watched her eyebrows rise. "Young man," Mrs. Chen said gently, "I'm Eleanor Chen. Can you tell me about this account?" Marcus's voice shook as he spoke. "My mama, she opened it for me. Before she died, she said it was for my future, for college. She made me promise not to touch it unless it was an emergency, to just let it grow." "And your mother's name?" "Sarah Williams. She worked 3 jobs. She was a nurse during the day, cleaned offices at night, and did people's hair on weekends." Tears pricked Marcus's eyes. She said education was the only thing nobody could take from me. Mrs. Chen's professional mask cracked slightly. Your mother was a remarkable woman, Marcus. You knew her? Marcus asked, surprised. No, sweetheart, but I know what I'm seeing here. She turned the monitor so Marcus could see it, though the numbers meant little to him beyond their size. The account balance read $347,829.43. Marcus stared at the number, not comprehending. That's mine? Your mother started this account 12 years ago with $500. Mrs. Chen explained, her voice gentle. She made deposits every single week without fail, sometimes $20, sometimes $50, once in a while $100. But she never missed a week, not one, for 9 years. Marcus felt tears spilling down his cheeks. He could picture his mother, bone-tired after her shifts, still making sure she went to the bank every Friday. All those times she'd said no to things he wanted. All those nights she'd worked when other parents were home. It was all for this, all for him. But that's not all, Mrs. Chen continued. About 7 years ago, your mother invested a portion in a tech startup through our investment services. She'd apparently met the founder while cleaning his office building. He was just starting out, and she believed in him. That investment has grown significantly. Richard Pemberton stood to the side, his face now pale and sweaty. I'm so sorry, he stammered. I shouldn't have. I made a terrible assumption. Marcus looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something he hadn't expected. Genuine shame. This man who had judged him based on his appearance, who had been ready to dismiss him, now stood broken by his own prejudice. My grandma says everybody makes mistakes, Marcus said quietly. She says what matters is what you do after. The simple grace of those words hit Richard like a physical blow. He nodded, unable to speak. Mrs. Chen placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. Your mother left instructions with the account. They're sealed, to be opened on your 18th birthday. But she also left a letter to be given. To you the first time you checked the balance on your own. She retrieved an envelope from the file, aged and yellowed, with my beautiful boy, written in his mother's flowing handwriting. Marcus took it with shaking hands and carefully opened it. The letter was short. Marcus, my heart, if you're reading this, you've kept your promise to wait. I'm so proud of you. This money is my love in dollars and cents. Every hour I worked, every dream I had for you. But baby, the real treasure isn't in the account. It's in your heart, in your character, in the person you're becoming. Use this money to build a life that honors all the sacrifices, not just mine, but your grandma's and all the people who loved you. Be kind, be generous. Be the man I always knew you'd become. I love you forever, Mama. Marcus pressed the letter to his chest, his body shaking with sobs. Mrs. Chen wrapped an arm around him, and even some of the customers who had watched the scene unfold had tears in their eyes. Richard Pemberton knelt down beside Marcus's chair. I want to apologize properly, he said. What I did was wrong. I judged you based on how you looked, and I almost missed seeing who you really are. Your mother raised someone special. Marcus wiped his eyes. She raised me to see people, not things. Those words hung in the air, a gentle rebuke and a profound lesson. In the weeks that followed, Richard Pemberton changed. He started a financial literacy program for underprivileged youth at the bank, teaching them what Marcus's mother had taught her son, that building a future takes sacrifice, discipline, and belief. He never forgot the boy in the worn-out shoes, who had taught him that wealth has nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with character. Marcus kept his promise to his mother. He didn't touch the account except for one small withdrawal, enough to buy his grandmother a new rocking chair and to replace his worn-out shoes. The rest stayed invested, growing, waiting for the future his mother had worked so hard to secure. But more than the money, Marcus carried forward his mother's real legacy. The understanding that every person has a story, that kindness costs nothing, and that assumptions based on appearance are the poverty of the soul. He wore his new shoes, but he kept the old ones in his closet as a reminder of who he was and where he came from. Sometimes the richest people in the room are wearing the poorest shoes. Sometimes the greatest wealth is measured not in account balances, but in the love that sacrifices everything for another's future. And sometimes a young boy with taped-up sneakers can teach a room full of adults the most valuable lesson of all, that humanity in its purest form sees beyond the surface to the soul beneath.